You don't have to come out to Poland and stand in the freezing cold to call yourself a filmmaker, but you probably do have to get out of bed and actually do some work today. And that's the message of this video. Hi, this is Peter. I'm in Krakow in Poland, and what I want to talk to you about is, are you a filmmaker or aren't you? Is this something which you're very serious about, or are you serious about the art behind it? Are you serious about it even as a career? Boo. But are you serious about doing this, and is this something which you say you're serious about and then you just spend all day in bed and procrastinate and don't really get anything done? Maybe you do a night's worth of script writing and you only really do one scene because you've been kind of having coffees and having dinner and getting, maybe you've watched half an hour of TV and to pump yourself up, good TV, and you've done all the right things, you think, to kind of get your routine and get it ready, but then when it actually comes to the work, it isn't like a work day that maybe your boss has made you do. It's kind of like you've turned up for work 7 hours late and you've done half an hour's work in a day, and that's not a very productive day. Whereas what you probably could be doing is having a day of script writing, next day casting, next day storyboards, get this done, and then you're ready to shoot the film in under a month. And I've never been able to do that. So if you are able to do that, either you're not thinking about the art enough. Maybe when I was younger I was able to do things that quickly, but when things get deeper and you start having to actually use your mind to come up with some really good character shit, you're at a point where you don't really know what you're doing, and so you're able to come up with this, what you think is great stuff, and then you evolve, and it becomes a lot tougher. Maybe I'll get to a point where one day it'll take me 10 years to make a film, and it'll be really deep and really great, but I'll probably die before it finishes. So that's a happy thought. So one of the first things I think about when it's the topic, are you a filmmaker or aren't you, is go big or go home. That's one of the core principles to me. What that means is not necessarily, you have to have a massive crew, a massive, great camera, one which, filmmakers would use all over the globe, an industry standard, or, for a lot of people that means a Red at this point in time, or an Alexa, perhaps, and it doesn't really matter, is what I'm trying to tell you. I use a C300 for a lot of my films, and it is really about what brush do you want to tell the story with. The question, are you going to go big or go home, that's more about are you actually ambitious, or are you the kind of person who shoots films out in the park behind their house or just down the road? You'd rather pick a location with kind of flat wallpaper, lighting is pretty standard, natural a lot of the time, because you're going to get that, and you're also going to compromise, because we all compromise to a degree when it comes to doing a shoot. No one, unless you're Stanley Kubrick and you've got that budget and you've got that possibly time, you're not gonna be the type of person who just shows up and expects everything to be perfect. You will compromise because you've probably put money into renting the camera. Your crew are going to start looking at you as in a kind of mutiny on our hands, and the compromises will usually be something along the lines of either continuity or lighting. A lot of the time, what I see all the time is flat lighting, shots which are not exactly how you would have pictured them, because of course, even the shot that I've done today is not how I pictured this shot when I was kind of figuring out where I wanted to set up the camera for this particular shot way back in England. So now that I'm here in Poland, you're cold, you just want to get it done in a way and move on to the next one. You got time, which is not on your side because the light's going down, and you're starting to think to yourself, I'm going to compromise. And you shouldn't. You should try your hardest not to. It's something which you've got to push through, and you've got to just, impose your will in a way without being a dictator. So I think what it's really about is just being able to say, did you do the best that you could have done on the project? Did you actually put your all into it? Or is it the type of compromise which comes from, I turned up with all the kit and but the location wasn't really what I wanted. The guy with permissions at the last second. I didn't even ask for permission when I knew it was the kind of place which needed permission. I didn't have quite the right prop, quite the right costume that I wanted, so the colours don't fit. And then you got that whole problem with, the art is then impacted. So then the art on your film is just gone, and isn't that kind of the reason why we do this? So you really want to get everything as perfect as you can, as ambitious as you can. I remember when I was first starting out, I wanted a whole sequence, in fact, next to Tower Bridge in London. And bearing in mind, at this time, I was in Stoke-on-Trent, which is over 150 miles away. So you need to, with that, I actually decided to shoot right around the corner from my house. In Stoke-on-Trent. So instead of 150 miles, it was, less than a mile. It was kind of the same idea. There was still the art was in the right place. You've got similar elements, like there was a lock and a canal, but basically, and there was a nice texture to the walls, and it ended up being a much better idea. And so you see, that is a compromise from. I mean, that's not really a compromise, that's just an artistic decision that actually benefits the project because you don't have to travel 150 miles, you don't have to pay for parking. You make those decisions on the art and the character and whether it works, the atmosphere of the location. That's where you make those compromises. You don't just go, oh, this place around the corner is a lot easier, so I'll shoot there instead. No, I mean, I did a shoot once which was over 100 locations up and down the country in England, and those places I had to pull back because I wanted to go to Scotland, I wanted to go to Wales, I wanted to go really far, to Land's End and get shots from there and shots from the bridge in Wales and get those shots, which would have meant a lot more travelling. It would have meant a lot more kind of effort, and it was hard enough in the end as it was. But the shots were probably better for the fact that I had the time to set up, I had the time to really work on those shots in a different way. So, to me, my compromises don't feel like compromises, and that's the point. They shouldn't feel like a compromise. You're going to be your own worst enemy, I hope. So you're going to tell yourself, no, I I really did compromise on that with the actors. I really did compromise on that. And it turns out that probably you won't be able to fix it on this film. That's dead. Even if you've got a year or 2 years left to shoot, you've already failed maybe. And that's a shame, and I'm really sorry, but the next one is the one where you've really got to get that thing right. You've really got to check yourself before you wreck yourself, and know that if it was the shot cinematography, if you didn't get the right crew because maybe you're not strong in that area, you need to bring up that side of you, and if you've got a really strong side of you, maybe you're aware of that, you can keep that at the same level for now. Always be improving everything, of course, but you really need to focus on the next film on, for example, me with actors. For the first few projects, my actors, I wasn't very good at talking to them, or I'm an introvert, so of course I wouldn't be. So you get them set and you've got these really nice locations. I've got this cinematographer's eye, but when it came to the actors, I just couldn't get a kind of performance. I'm about to be attacked by birds, and I couldn't get the performance that I wanted to out of them, and so that the whole film falls flat because the actors that were one of the most important, if not the most important thing on a production. So then in the films after that, I really tried to focus on slowing down with the actors, getting a great kind of performance out of them. I went so hard on the actual acting side of it and getting the casting right, getting the actor's performance right, that it turns out that now that's one of my best strong points. So now, and it usually does turn out that way, that if you fail with those things, then you come back and you fix the things. So don't worry, is what I'm saying, if you're not so strong at a subject right now. And you don't have to be strong at every subject. Martin Scorsese isn't strong at lighting, so, who would think it, right? But he isn't, and, look how many films he's made. The worst of this, I think, is when you're sat in your bed and you're looking through the script. Maybe you do what I do and you can actually work from your bed with the keyboard, the laziest way of working you could ever think of. Having your editing suite in your room has its pros and it has its cons, and one of the cons is it's not an office that you actually go out to work to, which is something you really should have rather than it being in your own room. In fact, I don't know why I still do it. And it does have its pros. So you pick the way that's right for you, of course, but as long as you're not being lazy with it, as long as these systems and these techniques that you have in place don't come back and kind of bite you on the arse when it comes to you're wasting a year, you're wasting 2 years. I know people who do this and don't talk about it at all. They won't even tell me, and I know what's going on. And, you can blame it on your job, you can blame it on your diet, you can blame it on everything, but ultimately it's you that needs to take responsibility for that. Are you a filmmaker or aren't you? This next subject is about how you talk to your actors, because there are a few people that I know who they don't really believe that they're a director. They don't believe that they're doing this professionally at all. It's still kind of just like one step up from a student project for them. Actually, remember when we made student projects and you would hear some of the crew actually say, well, it's just a student film. And it's like, no, this is just as valid as a film, as a feature film, as a Kubrick film. So you need to understand that this is really important what you're doing, and not just whether it's important. No, it's not that important as a thing in the world on the grand scheme of things, but it's important in terms of this is the thing that we love to do. We love making films, I hope. So we love kind of the whole process of it. And yeah, it's hard sometimes, but you just have to go out there and push for it and be professional about it as much as possible. Right, okay, so here's what happens. Here's the scenario. You go out and you're ready to meet an actor after casting, maybe before casting, and you just want to talk to them as a human being to a human being and kind of get to know them a little bit so that when they're on your project you can talk to them. I talk about how to talk to actors in other videos, but you need to get through to them and you need to connect with them. What's really going to help is if you actually believe in yourself. If they can believe in you and trust in you, they don't necessarily have to like you to be able to trust that you're the person for the job. And you want to have that kind of friendly vibe going on. But what tends to happen is, you can be friendly enough and they might kind of even like you for it and forgive you for it, but what they're secretly thinking on the inside is, well, I might just kind of back off this project because, it doesn't matter whether you've got a massive crew or no one at all. If you have the confidence to let them know that you are a filmmaker on the inside, you might not have even done anything. And this belief becomes like a curse. This belief, if you have it in yourself or not, becomes like, it affects the editing because you start thinking to yourself things like, how would other directors do it? I'm not quite, David Bowie, so how would I produce art to this degree? That's for people like them, whereas I'm people like me. Well, no, you are your own artist. You are bigger than Bowie. You're bigger than the Beatles. You need to understand that even if you've never done anything before, you have to step outside the fucking box and actually reveal who you are as an artist. Now, thankfully, when I was young, my dad showed me that I could, everyone was painting this painting in an art gallery along in school, and my dad said we were kind of limited to the one room, so it's a literal kind of step outside the box experience. My dad dragged me to the other room and said, paint this one. I guess that's kind of like doing his art instead of mine. But, it did actually teach me a lesson that day, and that lesson was that you need to step outside the box in order to do anything that isn't like what anyone else is doing. No one got that painting that day. I got that painting that day because they were all thinking, I can't break the rules. I'm not allowed to. These are your rules. Film is a new medium and there are no rules apart from don't be boring. although it's true that when you don't have anything creative to fall back on, you should stay on the tried and true, because at least then you have that trampoline underneath you, that kind of safety net. With your cinematography, with your editing, with your, the motion in the frame, the kind of with your actors, to encourage that within them, and with your kind of music choices, not just do something for the sake of being original. But Andrei Tarkovsky knew this, that basically if he saw a shot that was different, that was similar to another director, he would actually change that shot then to actually be more original. And a lot of people hear that and I think they think, oh, so what, I'm just gonna put something off to the side, I'm going to talk like that just because it's original? No, but if that's a cool way of doing this shoot and doing this technique, then that's the way that you're going to do it from now on. Maybe I could have been a bit more experimental with this shot and actually started it like this, but there are actual cinematic, I guess, guidelines that you have to follow, and we want to break the format and we want to kind of change it and have some kind of revolution with the medium. You can do stuff like that. There are rules of photography, of course, but you can break them. And who says you can't? Maybe doing this is me being wrong. We'll see. Sometimes you don't have the time to be creative, but that is a massive excuse. So you have to get past these things, and you have to fight the demon inside, I guess, and do your art your way and see what you can get from it. So there are people who actually write their scripts, and in doing so, they're writing from this frame of mind, which is that they're not a filmmaker, and they say it to themselves every day, I'm a filmmaker, or they kind of believe it, but at the same time they're holding back. They're kind of, because they haven't done anything worthy, they're not going to do anything worthy. They've never opened the gate before and actually said, yes, I can do this, yes, I'm gonna give in and accept this, that the days of not being a filmmaker are behind me. So I'm telling you right now, you are a filmmaker right now. You can do this. You can do what I'm doing. It doesn't take that much. I'm not even doing it very well. But, it is about actually accepting and being 100% involved in what you're doing. And remember that you're really just a soldier for film. It's not about whether you're successful enough to call yourself a filmmaker. That's maybe a bad way of looking at it. Maybe you should look at it in a way of kind of, I'm a soldier for film, and it doesn't take much to be a soldier, right?
What the fuck is that? What is that, Private Pile?
Sir, jelly donuts, sir!
A jelly donut?
And if this is something you're serious about, if you're serious about making art, and you're serious about making great films, maybe you should look at it as, I'm just a soldier for this medium. Maybe, if that helps you actually make great stuff, and if you have a high respect for film. I mean, I don't even have possibly what I would want to be, which is to have that amount of respect for film, as much as I always say that I have, perhaps. It's a matter of, well, some days I really care and some days I don't, and more often than not I care more about making films sometimes than I do about watching them every day. I mean, the last time I watched a film was probably about 2 weeks ago, because I've been very busy. But I would say in other videos, you've got to make films you've got to watch films every single day, and how many times in a month can you make a film? How many days do you actually dedicate to that when you're dealing with work, when you're dealing with life and relationships? How can you actually, if you've got a kid, when have you got time for this? If you're in debt, when have you got time for this? But it is something that you can, practice all the time. I'm being attacked by birds again, and they don't want me to make films. And why? you know, you come out here and it's freezing and you just want to make the film and you know, but that's all very well when you're sat in your bedroom, but when you actually do it in practice, it can be a little difficult. It can remind you how tough it is. Thankfully, the excitement will push you through. Sometimes you're just slogging and you're in a terrible mood, and you've got to use that to your advantage somehow as well. You've got to maybe bring that side of you out on camera or behind the camera, however you're doing it. I don't know how that is completely, but I know that you have to be congruent to who you are.
We should make